Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. We have some breaking news. A main event for a February 18th fight night card in Las Vegas has been announced. It's an amazing bantamweight matchup. Marlon Chito Vera versus Cory Sandhagen. And this is going to be my reaction as well as my early prediction for this fight. And I'm going to try to stay positive in this video. But there is one reason that I absolutely hate this matchup. And there's actually another smaller reason that I dislike it. But we'll get to that later in the video. My initial reaction to this fight is this is an amazing stylistic matchup. You have Marlon Chito Vera, who's surging. He's on a 4-fight winning streak. Hasn't lost since December of 2020. Beat Davy Grant. Stopped Frankie Edgar with a front kick. Beat Rob Font. And his most recent win was against Dominic Cruz via head kick. In a fight that was really weird because he'd be losing the rounds. It was similar to the Rob Font fight where he'd be losing the rounds and then he just hurt his opponent in the last minute and then he'd steal the round. Then you have Cory Sandhagen, who I know he's won only one out of his last three, but if you really look at his resume, the Petr Yan fight he took on short notice, stepped in for Aljamain Sterling. I think it was like a month's notice or something along those lines. You can kind of ignore that. And then the TJ Dillashaw split decision loss, most people thought he won that fight. And, it is what it is. So if you reverse the TJ Dillashaw fight, you have a guy who's won 4 out of his last 5. So Cory Sandhagen, it sounds weird, but he's kind of surging as well within the division. You can't really count that short notice fight against Petr Yan, which he looked good in. He clearly lost, but he looked good in. And when you match these two guys up, you have Marlon Vera ranked number 4. You have Cory Sandhagen ranked number 5. It's a very interesting stylistic clash. So it's an amazing matchup because, Cory Sandhagen he's that new breed of like a Dominic Cruz from back in the day when people used to say, oh, look at the footwork, look at the head movement, look at the placement of the hands and the defense. And Cory Sandhagen is kind of the evolution of Dominic Cruz in a way where he just fights so different than everyone else. He moves so well. The hands are low. The striking is elite. And then you have Marlon Vera, who I don't even know how to categorize his style because it's kind of like a technical brawler, I guess I would call it. But he just gets outstruck, and then he just finds a big shot to hurt his opponent. He has unbelievable power. He has unbelievable cardio. He has unbelievable kicks. And this is just such an interesting matchup because Cory Sandhagen, on paper, Cory Sandhagen clearly has the better striking, okay? But Marlon Vera, that unbelievable power, it's hard to not think that Marlon Vera can put Cory Sandhagen out, even though Cory Sandhagen has never been knocked out. He's never been finished via KO. His only finished loss is against current champion Aljamain Sterling, where he got submitted via rear naked choke. So this is such an interesting stylistic clash because it's going to be one of those things where Cory Sandhagen's kind of, circling around, using his footwork, using his head movement, probably outstriking Marlon Vera, and then Marlon Vera is just constantly looking for those kill shots. I know a lot of people are retiring Dominic Cruz nowadays because he got head kick KO'd by Marlon Vera. People forget Dominic Cruz looked very good in that fight. He was looking very, very good. And Marlon Vera just kept finding those big shots. He finds that big head kick, finishes Dominic Cruz. I mean, what a win in the 4th round, too. And Dominic Cruz had taken a couple of those early rounds. I don't remember exactly what I scored it. But then you go back and look at the Rob Font fight. Rob Font, that was a 25-minute fight. It went to decision. Rob Font probably won 23 minutes of that fight. How do you win 23 minutes of a fight, or probably like 22 minutes, and then go to decision and lose? Well, that's because he was primarily winning the majority of the rounds, and then Marlon Vera would find a heavy power shot and almost finished him in the last like 30 seconds to a minute of each round. I don't remember, round by round exactly what happened, but it's crazy the style that Marlon Vera has. And then on top of that, he has unbelievable cardio. We have never seen Marlon Vera tired in his entire career. And it's just absolutely insane. And you match these two guys up. They're both, this is two of the elite within the bantamweight division, which is the most stacked division in the UFC, in my opinion. I know some people say lightweight. And you match these two guys up, and it's an amazing fight. And I cannot wait for this matchup. And it's hard to get an early prediction because I could see it going Cory Sandhagen by decision. I think that's very likely, but I could also see Marlon Vera TKO, but also you have Cory Sandhagen, who's super durable. He took some big shots from Petr Yan when he fought him, took that massive spinning back fist from Petr Yan in their fight, and still just is able to survive, able to keep striking, able to continue to move forward. And it's not like, he's a guy that's been getting chinned left and right, like, an older Frankie Edgar or maybe a Cody Garbrandt at this point in his career. So it's going to be a very interesting dynamic to see how this fight plays out round by round. And honestly, this is one of my most anticipated fights of 2023, as crazy as that sounds, because I said there's a reason that I absolutely hate this fight, which we'll get to here in a minute. But as far as an early prediction, I don't know what to choose here. I really don't. But for an early prediction, I'm going to go Cory Sandhagen. I'm going to do an official breakdown and prediction when we get closer to the fight. So make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss that. But for me, Cory Sandhagen's the better striker. I don't think grappling is going to be used too much in this fight. But if I had to give an advantage in the grappling, I'd probably give it to Cory Sandhagen. I know he got out-grappled by Aljamain Sterling, and a lot of people just say, oh, Cory Sandhagen's a terrible grappler. He looked very good grappling against Petr Yan, who, and I know MMA math doesn't necessarily work, but you can get an assessment for their skills. Petr Yan looked very good in the grappling against Aljamain Sterling. And I know in the second fight he got held down, and I think it was the second and third round, but in the fourth and fifth, he even out-grappled Aljamain Sterling in the second fight. And Cory Sandhagen looked very good. He's been screaming from the rooftops for like 2 years now. He wants that rematch against Aljamain Sterling, which leads me to believe he's super confident. He's improved vastly in the grappling. So if there's one grappling advantage, I give it to Cory Sandhagen. And I think Marlon Vera has to find that KO in this fight. And the fact that Cory Sandhagen is very good with his footwork, he's very good with his head movement, I just find it hard to believe. But Marlon Vera, if anybody's going to find the chin, it's going to be Marlon Vera. Early prediction, I'm going Cory Sandhagen. I may change my mind when we get closer to the fight. Stay tuned to the channel to see that. Now, as far as the reasons I hate this fight, and I'm going to get to the main reason here in a second, but the first reason is, why is this at the UFC Apex? I mean, come on. This is an amazing bantamweight matchup, and we're putting it at the Apex with no live crowd. And, the UFC Apex is a video in itself. Comment down below. Let me know if you want to see me do an entire video on the UFC Apex. We've talked about it on different live streams, but I had to mention it here. How are we going to do two of the elite bantamweights? And this has title shot implications. I mean, 4 and 5 within the rankings. I know Merab's there, but he's not fighting Aljamain Sterling. I know Henry Cejudo's coming back. I know O'Malley's, at number 1, where he kind of had that robbery win over Petr Yan. I know Petr Yan's probably not getting a shot against Aljamain Sterling anytime soon. So you can really look at this fight. If Marlon Vera wins, it's hard not to imagine a universe where he's in line for a title shot. A lot of people think he already deserves a title shot. So if he goes out there and let's say he stops Cory Sandhagen, he's next in line. And I don't know what that line's going to look like or who he's going to have to wait. If Aljamain Sterling, Henry Cejudo happens, then the winner fights Sean O'Malley, which it seems like the UFC's doing, it has its current plans as. But, if he fights in February, let's say Marlon Vera gets the win in February, then I would assume maybe in March you would probably get Henry Cejudo versus Aljamain Sterling for the bantamweight title. And then I would assume in July or August, depending on how that Henry Cejudo, Aljamain Sterling fight goes, injuries and all that stuff, I would assume in July, late July, early August, somewhere around there, you're probably going to get, Sean O'Malley fighting the winner of that fight for the title. It looks like the UFC's planning on doing that. So if Marlon Vera wins this fight, he's probably going to have to wait till either the end of next year or early 2024. Is he going to want to sit out that long and wait that long? But you never know. Opportunities could present themselves. Look at Glover Teixeira, Jamal Hill. Nobody saw that coming, 2 weeks ago. Now it's the main event in a couple weeks for the light heavyweight title. So you never know. But this has title shot implications, and it's at the Apex. We're seriously doing it at the Apex. I hate the Apex at this point. I hate the smaller cage. A lot of people talk about crowd noise and just the lack of crowd, and I dislike that for sure. I hate the smaller cage. In what other sport are we actively changing the size of the playing field? Would you ever see the NFL shrink down the football field? Oh, well, this because of this or that. You would never see that. We're shrinking down the cage by, I believe it's like 20%. And it just seems like, it's like a Family Dollar version of the UFC, in my opinion. And I just don't like it. It just seems cheap. I absolutely hate it. Dana White keeps saying, oh, we're going to leave the Apex soon, and we're tired of doing events at the Apex. I don't think they are. And I think they're going to continue to do them for years to come. It's the worst thing to come out of 2020, that the UFC is going to continue to do Apex events because they can save a lot of money by doing it there. And I hate that they put a fight of this magnitude And, this stylistically fan-friendly in the Apex where only a couple hundred fans are going to be able to witness it at most. I don't even know what the capacity of the Apex is. The other reason I absolutely hate this fight, and this actually makes me despise this matchup, even though obviously I've already went over it's a high-level matchup. It has, legitimate division implications for the title, is because this was the moment. This was the moment in time that you book Marlon Chito Vera versus Sean O'Malley 2. For those of you who don't know, back at UFC 252, August of 2020, Marlon Vera and Sean O'Malley fought each other when they were unranked. And in the first round, it was basically an even fight. Marlon Chito Vera brutally chopped the legs of Sean O'Malley, then shucked him to the ground, and then brutally elbowed him, flash KO'd him, and then Sean O'Malley was stretchered out of the cage with no serious injuries. And after this fight, Sean O'Malley went on to say, I didn't lose this fight, it was a fluke, and basically, Marlon Vera got lucky. And since then, there has been this desire for a rematch, but it's never really made sense because Marlon Vera brutally KO'd him in the first round. So, when would this ever make sense? But you have Sean O'Malley right now, who still doesn't have a relevant win in the division, but somehow he's ranked number 1 in the bantamweight division. That is insanity. He is technically, if you look at the UFC's ranking, he is the number 1 contender right now. But he does not have a relevant win in the UFC. And I know people are going to say, well, he just beat Piotr Jan, a former champion at UFC 280. I repeat, that was an absolute robbery. He did not win that fight. He lost all 3 rounds. It was clear as day. And I just think it's crazy that he's potentially, after getting a robbery win like that, he's going to fight for a title afterwards. So he's just going to sit out, wait for the winner of Aljamain Sterling versus Henry Cejudo. This was the moment to make Marlon Vera versus Sean O'Malley 2. Then the winner of that fight was going to be number 1 contender. Why have Sean O'Malley sit out? You have this amazing backstory, and I know they could still do it if Sean O'Malley becomes champion. But looking at the top of that division, looking at Aljamain Sterling, looking at Henry Cejudo, it's hard for me to imagine a scenario where Sean O'Malley wins either of those fights. The grappling looked subpar in the Piotr Jan fight. Got taken down, got beat up multiple times in that fight. And, you have Aljamain Sterling, you have Henry Cejudo, primarily grapplers. So why not book this fight? Book it as a co-main event for a pay-per-view. Book it as a main event for a big fight night card. That amazing backstory where you have Marlon Vera that brutally KO'd him in the first round, but there was the leg thing, but which wasn't really a fluke. It was just a perfectly placed leg kick by Marlon Vera, who has amazing leg kicks. And you have that whole storyline where Sean O'Malley said it's a fluke. Then on top of that, Sean O'Malley, again, he has no relevant wins. Holly and Paiva's his best win. Chris Montinho took him to the 3rd round against Chris Montinho. No longer even in the UFC. The only win, the legitimate win that he has over a fighter currently in the UFC is Holly and Paiva, and I'm not even sure Holly and Paiva is still on the roster. So, and I know, again, the Piotr Jan fight, technically, if you look at his resume, he has a win over Piotr Jan. A brutal robbery, disgusting robbery. No way he should have won that fight. So why not make him fight Marlon Vera? And then if he beats Marlon Vera, I would have no problem with giving him a title shot. He beat a guy ranked in the top 5. He goes out there, gets a big win. You have this amazing backstory. I think that fight would actually draw pay-per-view buys. So perfect co-main event. You're doing Paddy Pimblett, Jarrett Gordon in a co-main event of a pay-per-view card. Sean O'Malley, Chito Vera 2 is a no-brainer. All the fans are dying to see this fight. I'm pretty sure Sean O'Malley would want this fight back, but who knows? I don't know if he wants it back because does he really believe it was a fluke, or is it kind of in his head? He got brutally finished by Marlon Vera and then stretchered out afterwards. So I would assume Sean O'Malley would want this win back because he could go out there, if he wins this fight, he could say, see, I told you. That 2020 loss was an absolute fluke. Marlon Vera, I'm sure, would love this fight. He already has a win over the guy, so why not fight a guy you already beat, 2-3 years ago for a potential number 1 contender spot? It just made so much sense. And the fact that the UFC decided to skip over that leads me to believe Sean O'Malley's just going to sit out. He's going to ride the coattails of that robbery win against Piotr Jan, and he's going to fight the winner of Aljamain Sterling versus Henry Cejudo. And I know some people are going to say that, oh, it makes more sense if Sean O'Malley gets the title or Marlon Vera gets the title. We've tried to play out these different scenarios before in the past, and it usually ends up never happening. So right now is the perfect time. O'Malley's technically on a winning streak. You know, if you exclude the no contest, he's on a 4-fight winning streak since losing to Marlon Vera. Marlon Vera is currently on a 4-fight winning streak. They're both ranked in the top 5 of the division. It made perfect sense. So I'm just kind of disgusted that it's not happening, and it makes me a little bit dampened on the thought of Cory Sandhagen versus Marlon Vera, even though that still is a very good fight in its own right. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Who do you think is going to win? Cory Sandhagen versus Marlon Vera? Who are you picking? And also, wouldn't you have preferred Marlon Vera versus Sean O'Malley too? I think most of you guys would agree with me, but let me know down in the comments. Don't forget to like the video, and thank you so much for watching.